Hello, hello, and welcome to That Second Gen Life with Samhar. I'm your host, Samhar Raya. If you are a second generationer, child of immigrants, a diaspora leader, professional change maker, however you identify, this space is for you. This podcast is more than just storytelling. It's about strategy, identity, leadership, communities, finding yourself in this beautiful diasporic journey we're all going to. We'll talk about everything from navigating a workforce as a diaspora professional to the role that you can play in making an impact from where you are, locally or around the world. We'll talk about the realities and joys of being a second generationer, some of the challenges, some of the delights, but most importantly, we're going to remind you that you are powerful, that you belong, and that your job here is to create the spaces you wish existed. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to That Second Gen Life with Samhar. I'm your host, Samhar Raya, and I'm so pleased to be sitting here with you today. Just got back from a weekend out for Memorial Day weekend, my birthday, and all these great things. And it feels really good to not only come back home, as always, but it also feels really good to come back to an event as important as the one that I'm about to share with you. Today is May 28th, and we're about to kick off the African Diaspora Network's 10th annual African Diaspora Investment Symposium, or ADIS as we call it. And ADIS has been a real figure in the diaspora engagement space. A lot of you ask how to get into this career. How do you work on diaspora initiatives, diaspora-focused projects? This is how you create the space that you wish existed, and you build from there. And that is really what Almaz Negash has been doing. I've known Almaz, 15 years. I think we met in 2010. We were one of the only ones in the United States really leaning into this diaspora space on a Pan-African level as Eritreans, but also as women, as innovators. Working on African diaspora issues is not new. It's just stood the test of time of how people of African descent globally find ways to stay connected and build networks. But there's something unique about the moment that we're in if you choose to work on African diaspora engagements. Back in 2010, it was really with not just the internet, but social media, opening up so many doors for us. A few of us just rushed right through. I had already been running my nonprofit organization, the Diaspora African Women's Network, but 2010 ushered in a whole new level of organizing, and I think Almaz saw that immediately. She shared on and on about her vision and her reasons for forming ADN, but to see ADN begin back then and evolve into what it has now is really remarkable. It's inspiring. It's a moment of celebration, of honor, of recognition that I think we all need to give to successful organizations of all kinds. But especially if you are a diaspora-led organization, it is so important to stop and really understand what it takes to build and create an institution that's lasting like ADN. So I want to tell you just some top thoughts around what has made ADN so successful from my view as an observer. First and foremost, as a founder, Almaz has had a very clear and strong vision. And that vision has always been to connect African diasporas around the world, but starting where she was in Silicon Valley, and inspiring us to connect and invest in the continent in a way that uses our time, talent, and treasure for good, but focused on tech, entrepreneurship, finance, investment, and really just using the resources that are within reach for and with Africa. And so what that used to look like was a very localized experience in California, in Silicon Valley to be specific. And it just snowballed from there. You need a few tries to get momentum, and you need to have an open door. And that's what the ADN's convening was. Now, African Diaspora Network as an organization did have its programs, it had its goals, change goals, but it was really these conferences where people got FaceTime with each other and to see each other in person that really became the biggest draw. And it was more than a conference. It's a space of ideating. It's a space of connecting, networking, a space of people seeking funding, finding funders. It's really just really become, I think, a critical space that we wish to see for diasporas of all backgrounds. I don't know too many other organizations that do this. I think ADN is a standout in the African diaspora space. The second thing that has made ADN so impactful is, in addition to the founder and her vision, there's also been a clear focus on its mission, but an openness to how to achieve that. And so building partnerships, being strategic about what institutions they engage with. And strategic doesn't mean choosy. Strategic means understanding what the reasons are for why you're working with who you're working with. I am specifically referring to the ability to see what the trade-offs are, both short-term and long-term, and what the long-term goals are that you're going after, and what it means to partner, and what it means to align, what it means to engage with other institutions. A lot of times, I think as diasporas, we really want everything to be perfect, right? We want the partnerships to be perfect. We want the funding to be perfect. We want the programs to be perfect. But you have to start somewhere. And I think Almaz and ADN have always understood that you have to build and then you improve. And I think what that has led to is a lot of strong partnerships across the board that have all shown themselves to be meaningful, impactful, but it has also exposed ADN to a much wider audience. And so we have to think very carefully as African diasporas, as diasporas of all kinds, when you start an organization. Yes, there's some values here around what are you willing to do and not willing to do? What lines will you not cross, right? You have to always ask that as a founder. But you also have to think and test yourself, how willing are you to engage with organizations and institutions that you may never have heard of, that you may not be familiar with, that you may not be clear on where this might go, but you do have a clear handle on the reins that you're steering. You have to be willing to take that risk. And I think ADN has proven itself to be friendly with taking risk and yielding a lot of return on that risk. And I'm saying this from just the space of a visionary who sometimes you often think of a visionary as someone who sees this big picture and wants it to get there. But the practical visionaries understand that you have to get your toes in the water. You have to actually build a partnership and work on your operations, your logistics, your communications, your marketing. Yes, your program delivery, but also your ability to partner and communicate with allies and strategic partners of all backgrounds. ADN has been really phenomenal in that space. The third thing I think that has contributed to ADN's success is its continued optimism, its continued guidance, and its continued support for all aspects of the African diaspora journey, and the fact that there's enough room for all of us. ADN continues to be as inclusive and open as possible to so many African diaspora experiences and allies of Africa. I think that's the other part that when I'm speaking about being strategic, it's this openness to having allies. But the reason that they have been so attractive for a number of different actors in the African diaspora space is because of that optimism. Okay, now, if you're not into tech, finance, entrepreneurship, or innovation, that's okay. You don't have to be, but you have to learn about what has contributed to the success of this model, to the success of this organization, and what it's required. The last thing that I think has contributed to the success of ADN is its team, the number of volunteers that have worked at that organization and have stayed. I will tell you as a founder, when you volunteer at an organization that is a startup, especially a diaspora nonprofit, one of the hardest things is retention. Because I think working and volunteering for a diaspora organization, if you are a member of a diaspora, it is such a transformative experience. You are seeing where the rubber hits the road and where programs and vision and mission directly align with who you are as a person. And that can be quite jarring for a lot of us that have felt invisible in a lot of diaspora spaces. And so volunteering and being a part of a team that is so impactful, it is life-changing and transformative for you. But it's also a testament to how well the organization is doing its work. ADN has managed to start from a team of one and a team of different volunteers that I've worked with and engaged with over the years to a really strong core team of staff. And that is because of funding that they've secured. That is because of momentum that they've built. And that is because of the commitment of its team members willing to stay through the ebbs and flows of starting a nonprofit organization and a diaspora nonprofit organization. I want you to understand that a successful diaspora organization doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen perfectly. There are moments where a diaspora nonprofit organization really can question what its future looks like, but it's incumbent on its leadership, on its board, staff, and on its supporters and donors like you, I hope you're listening, to really be willing to take the long journey with them. Because it will survive, it will work, but it requires all of those factors. Now, if you're listening and you're a member of a diaspora organization, or you're a member of a diaspora community, and you think, gosh, I wish I could just do this organization, or I could start this, I would strongly suggest you first check and see what diaspora organizations already exist that you can support, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And even if this organization is not completely what you're focused on or passionate about, it is still important that you find a way to support it so that you can create more space for organizations like the ones you are thinking about in your mind. We don't have to compete with each other. This isn't a competition. There's enough room for all of us, but it does require that we invest and support each other. And so I think that ADN has really developed a Pan-African inclusive space, focus on a set of issues that can deliver real impact to the continent with the continent, and also just a joy with this work. And because of this inclusiveness, this intentionality behind the inclusiveness, it is a work in progress. It's a constantly iterative process. And so I want you to join me in supporting African Diaspora Network. If you're in Washington, D.C., please consider attending the conference, but also consider making a donation. Consider signing up for their mailing list. Consider being at their events in the future. A lot of the events are online. A lot of the events are in person. But do not underestimate the power of your contribution, both in your time, in your support, in your donation, in your leadership, okay? And if you have questions around how else you can support an org or how else you can support a diaspora initiative, I have tons of ideas. There's so many. I think I want to write a list of all the different resources that you have at your fingertips that can really help diaspora nonprofit organizations. But today I am headed out to the conference. Tomorrow I'll be speaking at the conference on the importance of diaspora policy and engagement. And I would invite you to really stay close to ADN. And if you know of any other organizations that are equally impressive or that inspire you, I'd love to hear them as well. So I'm going to end today's podcast episode with a clip from Almaz. I want you to hear her own thoughts around vision and what it means to discover your path and how important it is that you listen to your instinct. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. And you have a great rest of the week. Bye, everybody.
To achieve a vision is not a simple thing. It's something in you. And if you can give it a chance to listen what that is, I think somehow you find ways to make it work. And what's interesting about this is that it doesn't show up quickly. It comes in different ways throughout your journey. Some people are lucky enough to realize their vision early as, I don't know, in their teens. Some in their 20s, some of us in our 30s, some of us in our 40s, some of us in our 50s, 60s, on and on. There is no limitation to the time when you feel like, oh my goodness, I am going to do this because this is part of who I am, part of what I want to do.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow That Second Gen Life with Samhar on your favorite listening platform.